What defines a Pokemon generation? What will Gen 10 look like? What's up everyone, it's Dusty, welcome back to my headcanon. I was talking to some friends and we went down the rabbit hole of what the 10th generation of Pokemon could look like. I've got a heavy feeling that Generation 9 will last about 4 years, so Generation 10 can begin in 2026 on Pokemon's 30th anniversary. The release of Generation 9 was a big moment. This was the first time we actually got an open world Pokemon experience. And now I'm looking a few years down the line, thinking how the heck could Generation 10 top it? I feel like this game is poised to revolutionize the franchise. We've always seen progression with every new Pokemon release. How could Gen 10 set itself apart from Generation 9? They're gonna want to market this thing as the greatest Pokemon game of all time, so they're gonna have to make a lot of improvements. For starters, they could remove all of the bugs that plague the Gen 9 engine, and there's a lot of great things about modern Pokemon. Battling is as seamless as ever. I love the raid system. Overworld shinies, overworld Pokemon, but I don't really know if that's enough. If we look at the last 5 years, this current era of console Pokemon games have been inconsistent to say the least. Generation 8 was very experimental with the style of games that were released. And while Generation 9 is the first open world Pokemon game, it is clearly unfinished and full of deficiencies. But going forward in Generation 9, in the next 4 years, we will likely see new Pokemon remakes for either Johto or Unova. We could see another game built like Pokemon Legends Arceus or the Ilka style Faithful remake. I also fully expect there to be a mainline Pokemon game in a style that we've never seen before. And this is a good thing. I like when Pokemon takes chances and experiments. What I really want to know is the direction that Generation 10 is headed. What will the new region be based on? Can they fix all of the technical issues that have been ushered in by Generation 9? Will features like crafting and overworld catching return? What are the odds we get a new Pokemon type? This could be our last shot for a sound, a cosmic, or even a light type. And could this Gen 10 game possibly include more than one region? I would be thrilled to go back to Japan. That's where the first 4 Pokemon regions are based on. They're all in Japan. Let's go back there. Let's connect it all. This could be a massive start to something new. I've got a lot of questions because I want the Pokemon Company to succeed. And I'm curious. Here's that conversation I had with Lumio's post and Soul Silver Art. They're going to be shaking stuff up in Gen 9. Like we predict Legends Arceus or Legends games, right? We predict more Faithful remake games. I don't know. There's probably going to be something new that is not anything that we've even considered. But now that we do have an open world game, it does make sense that they would then try to, I mean, I think what they have to do is just like get a working engine. That's definitely the next step. Which probably what we should expect for Gen 10 and maybe Gen 11. It can be even bigger. But if a Generation 10 game comes out, that feels arbitrarily like a big deal, right? Generation 10, 10 generations of Pokemon. You would think that they would want to do some sort of kind of what they did with Journeys, right? Where you actually do touch on all these different places. And I think
especially if it drops on the 30th anniversary.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a big freaking deal, right?
It's two big deals. Definitely. It's the 10th generation, the 30th year. I mean, it's 2 in 1.
So that's great. We can do a tons of wishing, right? I'm sure they would sell just as much money just giving us a new gen, or even they could even just give us a remake, right? They did that with Sun and Moon. They could really just release anything on the anniversary. However, I do think they would want to do something kind of significant, right? They could do bare minimum, but I would want them to do something significant. I think if they're going to give us a game that has to do with multiple regions at all, it would have to be those Japanese inspired regions, the first 4 generations, because they're small enough in scale, right? And then also because they're actually like interconnected on the same landmass. What they could also do is really shrink down they could shrink down the regions a lot as well, right? That's something else they could do.
Yeah.
Or they give us basically one region. It could be the new region, right? So we have Kanto, Johto, Sevii Islands, Hoenn, Sinnoh. This whole area right here of real-world Japanese. Untouched. This is where Gen 10 could be. And then you essentially have these DLC packs that open up different areas, right? I think if they're going to do something crazy, if they're going to do something that really shakes everything up and allows them to not have to continuously make a brand new mainline Pokemon series game, is that they would want to make a Pokemon game where they can just keep adding on to it and keep people tied in. I don't think we're ever going to get a game that's every single region. But if anything like that were to happen, I think going back to this Japanese-inspired region makes sense because these games have always been all together, right? And also, you got to think like Generation 10 is like 3-4 years from now. It would make sense to go back to the roots and pay homage to the roots.
Right.
I think it would be cool even if you somehow let us visit the original gens without actually letting us, what if you had a cruise ship take you from, even if it's a region based on China, then you take it from the China region to the Sevii Islands, so you get to revisit the Sevii Islands. You don't get to go to Kanto, but the Sevii Islands, and maybe even the battle tower that was on one of the Sevii Islands, I forget which island exactly it was on, has now been replaced with a world tournament. And there you have,
that's crazy.
Lance back, Cynthia back, Steven, Iris, all kinds of people you could do. I mean, what was it in the original world tournament? There was a gym leaders bracket, so you could battle all the gym leaders. There was a champions one where you could battle all the champions. They could even do like an Elite Four bracket. You battle all the Elite Four. A Battle Brains bracket where it's all the Frontier Brains, Subway bosses, all those types of characters. And then you could even do like an All-Star bracket where it's characters that don't fall into any of those. So things like Barry or Silver, where they're not a gym leader, they're not an Elite Four member, not a champion, so they could fit into like an All-Stars bracket. That would be really cool. I'd love that.
I don't think that it's possible. I wish that it was. I think that they would just do a whole new area of Japan if they're going to do something like that. I don't think that they would revisit the old ones and make them into one, unless it's like years from now. Like, Pokemon's like looking for something real fresh and new, and we've gotten like 3 remakes of that already, and it's just a new way to do it all over again.
I guess my thought with this is like every time there's a new generation, they have to make a new engine, and now we're getting new games with new engines in between and that are independent of the main series engine, right? I feel like it almost there's so many issues with Scarlet and Violet, right? If they can make an engine that actually works, like wouldn't it be nice if instead of having to like build a brand new game now, what they could do is just like make a callback region where we could travel to that region and it's the same engine. I feel like that's a huge part of the development that like no longer needs to exist. Maybe I don't understand game development, but I feel like they're really going to have, like, if Scarlet and Violet actually looked nice, right? Like, it is a fun game to play. I'm not trying to say it's an awful game, but there's glaring problems.
Right.
If Scarlet and Violet Scarlet and Violet, it just like, it has the issues. And now that we have Gen 9, it kind of makes me not want them to rush into Johto, into blah 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 DLC, blah blah remake, whatever. I don't know. Like, I want these games, but it's like, how much worse could it get if they're still making profits? So part of me wants to almost like rationalize and be like, maybe what they would want to do is make something that could make just as much money. I would buy $60 DLC if they gave us a main series game. And then they said, well, now you can go to the Kanto region in the same engine. It's gonna be $50, $60. But it actually looks nice.
I'd 100% do that.
And then like maybe there's a new option where if you want to start the new game, you could start from the Kanto region. I don't even think that's that crazy. Like, how are they gonna sell or market another open world Pokemon game? Maybe they go like, you can go to any region. We talk about how these games are going to continue to one, surprise us, but also continue to get better and better and develop and make these games worth $60, right? Having that option, I think, is super cool.
I want to go back to an old region so bad. I don't even care which one, just because that was such a cool feature of, I know that, for y'all, it was probably Gold and Silver. For me, it was Heart Gold and Soul Silver was the first Johto games I played. You beat the league and, oh, you can go to a whole nother region that you've been to before. I would love if there was a China game, and even if at the end of the game they were like, get on a plane, we'll fly you to the Unova region. Like, completely unrelated, not neighboring it at all. I don't care. I would just love to have that feeling again.
I feel like they got to make some sort of shift, and we saw with Generation 8, they've made a lot of choices, right? Good and bad.
Don't mind experimenting. They have shown that the last 4 years. They have proven time and time again they don't mind experimenting.
They've been experimenting forever. That is the Game Freak policy. Like, it's just how it goes, always.
If you're still watching and like this style of video, hit subscribe, and I'll have links in the description to check out our weekly Pokemon podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck hunting.